We are recording.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hi, Trish. So, hopefully, we don't have any technical errors because we've already had two of them and we didn't even start filming at that point.
I know. We are actually about an hour after we got online with each other, we're finally recording because technical issues.
So, here's the funny thing I think it's actually still going to be a relatively short episode because when we get to my deep dive stuff, I don't have a lot to talk about.
I don't either. This was a
And it
weird book club month.
and for me for what I wanted to review, it I think watching the show first kind of ruined this experience.
Oh.
So what have you been working on? So let's go there.
Okay, well, I'm still working on Fire and Ice, second book of Heroes of High Tide, and I've had to push my deadline to get the book to my developmental editor now for the second time. So that's,
Oops.
yeah, it's not good. But I already have a bunch of revision notes because the way my brain works is when I'm sitting watching television with my kids or cooking dinner, my brain's like, aha, here's the solution you need. The problem is I haven't been writing it down. So the other night, I'm having movie night with my kids. We're watching Into the Spider-Verse, the best Spider-Man movie ever. And
Yes.
I have a pad of paper next to me because I know something's going to happen in my brain. And the last half of the movie, I am making revision notes. So there are some things that need to be rewritten. There is a character who is going to be completely changed and killed off in the first quarter of the book, which I don't do lightly. It's going to make a real difference in one of the point of view characters' story arcs, and it's the missing piece, I feel like. So I'm
Okay.
excited about that. So all good things, but um, yeah, it's
Work.
work. Yeah, and I haven't even finished this draft yet, and I'm like, well, like that all needs to be rewritten. Not
Oh.
all of it, but like most of it. I would say about 50% of what I have written will need to be retooled with these notes. So it's not like it was before where nothing survived the draft. So progress.
So yesterday my box set went live.
Yay!
Um and I'm not pushing it. I'm not advertising it. I'm giving it a little bit of a slow start, kind of
Mhm.
intentionally, because I wanted some things to happen organically before I go into the ad side of stuff, and then we have our promo starting next week,
Mhm.
and I want to promote it while the first book in the series is being promoted to a different audience.
That's smart.
So I definitely have some logic to what I'm doing. It's very convoluted. I'm not 100% sure it's going to work, but it is what it is.
Mhm.
And then my audiobook, which should have come out 3 weeks ago, I just got a reply from Audible that they're like, or ACX, and they're like, yeah, you're going to follow that up with a statement? They literally said,
Oh my
sorry.
God.
So I am one of the victims of the ongoing ACX struggle. So it is what
I'm
it
so
is.
sorry.
And I just got the contract for my superhero smut, and
Kind of iffy.
it's not bad from the publisher, so not bad whatsoever. It once I saw the terms, I had to make some personal business decisions.
Mm.
So I wrote back. They sent me the contract, and I wrote back. I'm more than happy to sign it, but the following things need to change.
Have they
And
responded?
I got a response from the managing editor who I'm friends with, who she flat out said, I understand if you don't want to sign this. Like, there's no hard feelings whatsoever. And they're not asking for anything strange or anything that I'm uncomfortable giving.
Mhm.
I just, they're asking for 7 years, which is pretty standard
Yeah.
in trad pub. But the, I didn't like some of the terms, and one of the terms was a little vague. And we all know what happened to my vague contract from before. So
Yeah, no, got to be careful.
So it was the first time I felt confident enough writing back, be like, I'm more than happy to sign this if you change the following. Like, oh, I have the upper hand.
Absolutely.
It's not bad. I'm dwelling on business decisions. So,
which are never easy.
No,
at all.
Because what am I going to be doing in 7 years?
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on next month.
That feels. I know it might be standard, but it does feel really outlandish. This publishing landscape, it feels. You're asking for what? Like 2 years, I can understand. 2 years makes sense to me. 7, what are they going to do with it over the course of 7
and
years?
Let's be quite honest. The way I feel about it is it's going to make all its sales in the first year, and then it's going to be a trickle. So
yeah,
I'm going to see a good, first quarter, second quarter, and then after that, it's going to be pennies. If it's not earning both of us money, why are you holding on to a property?
Yeah.
And so it, and I'm not faulting them. They're doing very legit business, and everything's been very above the board. But not every contract's made for every author. So
yeah. No, and that's why, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're an author, that is author 101. If you go trad pub or you're a hybrid author where some of your stuff you're going with a traditional publisher, examine that contract with a fine-tooth comb. Do not just sign it because, yay, I have a pub. No.
Because it'll cost you $3,000 in lawyer fees to get out of the contract when the publisher's not agreeing to uphold their end of the deal. Ask me how I know.
An episode for a future
It's just going to be an hour of me crying. But that's what the box set represents. It's this big arc that was with the publisher. I got the rights back. I did everything. I re-released, and now this is like the end game. Ta-da! So,
there it is, and it's beautiful. Yeah. It is pretty beautiful.
I'm so excited, and there's more artwork coming.
Yay! If you haven't seen his cover and you're listening to this, go to his Facebook page and look at that cover. It is stunning. I still want a print of that. It's beautiful.
It's by Sean Carlson, and he is phenomenal. And thanks to my mother, of all random supporters, there's the possibility of a art compendium in the future.
Oh my God. So, okay. We could talk about this forever, but we have...
Okay, so I'm excited for Geek History because it's kind of special this week.
It is very special. We are doing a special Star Wars edition because May the 4th be with you, Jeremy.
And with you. I never know what to say to it.
Is that the correct response?
So, before you start, did you see the meme today of the stormtroopers saying Happy May the 4th, and then the other one says, oh, it's May the 5th?
Yeah.
And the other one goes, oh man, I missed it again.
That is brilliant.
I snorted to the point where like soda got in my nose.
Oh no. I love it. I love it.
Okay, so what do you got?
So, all right. So this was, let me say up front, I visited like 4 different trivia sites, and it was really hard to pick. I wanted to say them all. And if you're like me and you love this stuff, there is a link in the show notes to a Star Wars trivia quiz that was really a lot of fun.
How'd you do on it?
I did really good, all things considered, because I know almost nothing about the prequels, because I'm really sorry, Star Wars fans. I hated those movies.
So did Star Wars fans.
I know... Well, no, there's some that like came to the franchise through those, and I get the like they hold a special place in your heart. Totally understand that. So I didn't do so good on those questions, but there's some that I was like, wow, the original trilogy, I kicked some butt on that one. Like, I was pretty proud. Okay, so the first thing we have, this was so cool when I read this. Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge Antilles in A New Hope, is Ewan McGregor's real-life uncle.
I knew that.
Did you? I did not know
And
that.
best part, Ewan McGregor is from the same town as my boyfriend.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
They lived in the same town, very close to each other, but Ewan McGregor went to a arts academy. So they weren't in school together.
Oh my God. What a small... You are like 1 degree of separation
And
from Ewan
which,
McGregor.
weird trivia fact, when I went to Scotland, I made a Scotland playlist, and Ewan McGregor's Your Song got put on there. Elton John is from the UK, so close, and Ewan McGregor's from Scotland, so of course it counts. And the boyfriend became the boyfriend after singing me Your Song.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, little heart patter there.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. Everything else pales into comparison to that. Well, I loved the fact that McGregor has very fond memories of going as a family to see A New Hope in the theater to cheer on his uncle, which is just delightful since McGregor plays Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequel films.
Possibly in another movie.
Well, the upcoming series, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, has been greenlit, and he is going to be in it. It's a series.
I prefer series.
Yes, I do too. So next one, in the story development for Return of the Jedi, Lucas toyed with the idea of Luke taking off Vader's helmet and then declaring, "Now I am Vader," and turning to the dark side, providing further proof that George should never be allowed to make final story decisions about the franchise. That last part is my addition.
True. We all know how the original extended cut release went. Not so good.
No. The sets on The Phantom Menace were where Liam Neeson appeared. So the sets and the scenes where Liam Neeson was acting had to be rebuilt to accommodate his 6'4" stature. They were built to accommodate somebody that was much shorter, and he kept getting caught walking through the set. He kept having to bend over, and they were like, "Okay, yeah, it's not going to work." So it cost an additional $150,000 to remake the set pieces so that he could walk through a freaking doorway.
You paid $150,000 for an extra 4 inches. This podcast is no longer for children.
Well, and the thing is, I knew he was tall. I mean, I've had a crush on Liam Neeson since High Spirits, which, if you don't know that movie, don't bother going and looking it up. Just don't do it. But I've had a crush on him since that movie, and I knew he was tall, but dear God, 6'4".
So I am 6'4.5".
Are you really?
Only my day job boss is taller than me, which,
damn,
and he's like 6'6.5", which doesn't sound like a big difference, but it's weird for me to look up at talking to someone. I'm so not used to it.
Yeah, that would make sense. All right, we have a couple more. This one's long. It's a longer pop culture history because I just love this so much. So Laura Dern, who plays Admiral Amelin Haldo, couldn't stop saying "pew" when she fired her blaster. In spite of some handy editing and camera angles, you can still see her saying it in the final cut.
That is hilarious.
Slow it down. Right? So, side bit of trivia. Cate Blanchett was the same way on the set of Thor Ragnarok. Every time she punched, she would go and if you look at the movie, there are a couple of scenes where they don't cut away quick enough and her lips go like that. And I love it so much.
I would just put it in there for fun effect. That's perfect.
It is perfect. All right, and last one. We're ending on a bittersweet one. The kiss that Luke places on Leia's forehead in The Last Jedi was unscripted. But Hamill felt that since this was it, the last time he'd see his sister, it was a fitting goodbye. It was the last scene they filmed together on Star Wars. So that's they're hiding. I don't know if you remember it. They're hiding in the old Rebel base on the planet that's like got the ice crystal foxes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he force projects in there, and he tells her no one's ever really gone, and he kisses her forehead before he goes out to face Kylo Ren.
Yep.
So that was the last time they were on screen together as Luke and Leia. And he obviously didn't know that that was going to be it, but the kiss was improvised because he felt like this is how Luke would say goodbye to his sister.
And I wasn't even 100% sure that he was there with her. Like, I wasn't sure if that was like special effects magic happening.
No, he was physically for filming. He was physically there, but I mean, the story is that he's the story is Force Ghost or Force Projection. But yeah, and I read that and I was like, okay, now I'm crying because oh my god. But anyway, that's your fun Star Wars trivia.
That's some good ones. I'm gonna have to go take this quiz now. I'm curious as I'm not a Star Wars fan. I don't mind it. I enjoy it, but I hate westerns. So.
Oh well, then yeah. I could see why.
I like the sci-fi piece of it, but when it gets all westerny space opera,
it's more samurai movie. The first one, the original, like first Star Wars samurai, and which makes sense because it was directly taken from Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress.
You mean?
If you're a movie nerd like me, you would know that.
It's not an original concept? Oh no. I can just hear us being downvoted right now. Okay, so you want to do your geek out first? You want me to go?
Sure. Actually, my geek out is a good it's a good segue. So my geek out is actually the final series of the Clone Wars, or the series finale of the Clone Wars.
This is it for Clone Wars, right?
This is it for Clone Wars, yeah. So I'm a weird Clone Wars fan in the sense of it's really not my favorite. I haven't seen every episode. I think Star Wars Rebels, to me anyway, Rebels is much more fun, and I think it's more of an interesting show. But I watched enough of the Clone Wars and I'm enough of a Star Wars nerd that I super appreciate what they did with this series finale. And no spoilers, I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody. The last season overlaps with Revenge of the Sith.
Oh.
And they had always planned for that to happen. Now, Dave Filoni, who's the showrunner, the show was canceled before its final season in the mix-up, the shuffle of everything in the sale to Disney. And so he got the green light to do the final season, and he'd already planned out how he was going to end it. And how that overlap was going to happen. And we all know Order 66 is the order that triggered the chips in the heads of all the clones to kill the Jedis. So it's canon. We all know that. The end of the Clone Wars does overlap with that.
Okay.
And so that's part of the last 2 episodes. We see that, but we don't see it. And this was so smart. It's not about Anakin anymore. The Clone Wars, it was about Anakin and Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka was in it at the beginning, but then as the series went on, really, it became more about Ahsoka, who was Anakin's Padawan. And in the last season in particular, they focus almost exclusively on Ahsoka. Anakin and Obi-Wan make appearances. There's other things that end up happening. But really, especially the last 4 episodes, we are now into the movie, The Revenge of the Sith. And so the focus is on Ahsoka as a former Jedi Padawan and her trying to fight in the war, trying to finish the war. And I'm really trying not to give anything away. I want to say that as a Star Wars fan, what's going on with Anakin. The few times he shows up, you're just this gut-wrenching punch because you know what's coming. And you can see the hints. They lay it very well. The hints of his fall are coming as you see Ahsoka really come into her own as a young woman. She's taking charge. She's making hard decisions. She's making sacrifices. She's staying cool in the face of just these overwhelming odds. She's making the hard decisions. So as Anakin is falling into the dark side, Ahsoka is coming into her own as a woman. And it was just beautifully done. And the last 2 scenes I'm not going to say what they were again because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. You as an artist, Remy, you should look these two scenes
Yeah,
up. There's no
the whole thing
dialogue.
is on my to
They're
watch list.
gorgeous.
I've heard nothing but good things about Clone Wars, so
It's it's a war show. It's a space
yeah.
war show, which is probably why it wasn't my favorite thing because it's not my favorite genre, but whatever, it's Star Wars. I can appreciate it. But as an artist, I think you would appreciate these last just the two scenes. There's no dialogue in them, but the art, I swear to God, it looked like it was a painting. It was some of the most beautiful animation I've ever seen. And it was no dialogue, but these two scenes, it was like someone ripped out my heart and was squeezing it. It was incredible. And I'm usually not a cartoon, like cartoons don't usually get me like that. But this was like, God, it was amazing. It really was.
I might have to go watch it now.
Yeah, I think you do. And here's the thing that I was saying in the live write-in. If you're like, oh, I don't want to watch all 6 seasons, fine. Go get a Wikipedia, read the recaps of all the seasons leading up to the final one, and then just do yourself a favor and watch the final season. If that's really what you got to do, then go do
I
that.
think I
But
stopped watching it at the end of season 1, and not because I didn't enjoy it, just because life.
yeah,
I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the characters way more than I did in the movies.
that is a very common thing. It's the Anakin we should have
Yeah,
gotten.
that's what I
And
felt.
that's the other thing. Yeah, and that's the other thing about this final season, and in particular the last 4 episodes. It's it's honestly the Star Wars movie that we should have gotten with Revenge of the Sith. And when I say that it's some of the best storytelling I've ever seen, I'm dead serious. It's beautiful and phenomenal and deep and meaningful and just it's amazing. Go watch it.
So
What's your
my
geek out?
geek out is not particularly geeky in typical geek fashion. So I am a horror movie buff.
Hmm.
I am. I I watch a lot of horror. Um, and I watch some really weird horror, but I don't deviate too much from the popular. Occasionally, like there'll
Hmm.
be a great Korean film that comes out. Like, okay, let's take a risk. Um, so the first one, I I watched this. I watched both of these the other day, but I watched the platform second, which is uh, a Netflix movie. I think they're both on
Oh,
Netflix. But
interesting.
um, did you ever watch The Cube?
I cannot do horror.
So the whole premise is there's an unknown organization that is putting people into this really tall building, 2 people per floor and over 200 floors. We don't really know at the beginning. And a platform moves down the middle of a shaft. It's like
Uh-huh.
electromagnets or something, and it just floats down and it stops for like 30 seconds on each floor, and those people can eat, and it's covered in their favorite foods. They eat, and then the platform moves down. So what happens to the food come platform 200? And you get to watch the crazy that ensues with, and I mean, it gets gross really fast, and gross stuff doesn't faze me, like, whatever. Um, it gets brutal, it gets philosophical, I believe it's in Portuguese,
Oh my God.
which Netflix is really good at having obscure stuff in other languages lately.
It
I,
is, and I
I've
love
been
it.
watching a lot of Portuguese shows, pretending like I understand what they're saying. Um, so it wasn't that it wasn't bad. It wasn't great. I would give it like a solid C plus, but I do think it was worth watching. And then the other one I watched, which is also on Netflix, called The Endless. This is probably if you're not a horror fan, this might be the horror film for you. It's not
Okay.
scary. It's a little confusing, and there's, I'm not going to even say jump moments. There's an ominous monster.
Okay. I watched Stranger Things. That's about as scary
I
as
would
I can
say
get.
this might not even be as scary as that at points. Um,
Oh,
so
okay.
the whole premise is these two brothers lead a very crappy life together after they left a doomsday cult, and they go back,
Good
and what they
God.
find out is maybe the cult wasn't wrong, and
Interesting.
and weird. It's very Lovecraftian. The
Mm-hmm.
big bad is there but not, and you're not sure a little,
Hmm.
and things happen to give you hints. So I like the fact that it didn't play with the viewer in the fact that oh, is it or is it not, is it or is it not. It tells you, um, but what it tells you is super bizarre, and that was kind of fun.
Okay.
So
Okay.
those are, I've been watching an uncanny amount of movies, and those are the first two that I was like, huh, I would actually tell someone you might want to check that out. So
Okay. Well, and when you binge watch stuff, like to have something stand out like that, it says
yeah,
something.
because otherwise I'm basically, I'll make a list of all the stuff I'm watching to remind you not to watch it because it's trash.
Yeah, I'm having a really hard time because I mean I've kind of watched the things that I'm like, oh, I love this show, and now I'm like, what's new? I need something new.
I've been saving up Westworld, so this week I'm gonna watch the next 5 episodes of Westworld. I want to binge it, and it got greenlit for the next season,
Oh,
which I
nice.
don't understand how there will be a next season. So now I'm interested all over again. So
Ooh, intriguing.
yeah. Okay, so deep dive.
It's our book club episode because last week we had the Corn Con panel, which I hope everybody liked because that was so much fun to
Yeah, that was
do.
a good time. I really
Um,
enjoyed that
it
whole thing,
was.
which is good because da 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 da. We're going to be doing our own 5 nights of panels starting
Yeah.
the
18th,
18th.
I
I
think,
think
isn't it?
so. I'm,
It's a Monday, I know that.
yeah, let me before I
You gotta check that
just
out. All right, but I'm gonna plug it while you check the date. So, really quick commercial. If you go to superherofiction.com, that's where we're hosting it,
yeah,
correct? See, now I
yep.
don't know. Superherofiction.com, we're gonna be hosting the panel. It's gonna be one panel each night, 5 nights, and it's gonna be so much fun. We have a romance panel, we have an origin story panel, we have developing superpowers panel. Um, we have an anti-hero panel, and then we have just talk about heroes in pop culture. So TV, movies, books, the whole nine yards. It's going to be a lot
So
of fun.
we've invited there are 16 authors that will be participating. And it's just going to be kind of a way for us to communicate with other humans. Yay. And we're as big a geeks as the people who read our books. So we're kind of geeking out
True.
about uh, things outside of books, but could be books, could be movies, could be cartoons, it could be
Yeah,
anything. Um, so
exactly.
we're hoping people will come, check it out. It'll be all on the website, big graphics, you can't miss it.
Yep. So check it out for the schedule. We don't have the times up yet, but we are working on that this week,
Soon.
and we should have that up very soon. All right. So deep dive book club.
Okay, I'm just gonna
It
go.
was it was a weird book. Yeah,
I'm
you go
just
ahead and go. It was a weird book club month for me.
okay. So, I wound up reading The Walking Dead, the first 6 issues of The
Okay.
Walking Dead, which is a story arc called Days Gone By. This is the original team of, and I'm gonna have to check the name because I'm always gonna. It's Robert Kirkman and do, 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 Tony Moore that does the art. So um, the problem is I read the first issue when it came out in
Hmm.
2006. I think it was 2006. And so I knew what it was about, and I was vaguely interested because their first issue was really strong, and it set up a lot of good stuff really quick. I didn't read anything after that, and I started watching the TV show. And the first
Okay.
season of the TV show takes place over 6 episodes, and then the second season, I believe, is 8 episodes. So the
Mm-hmm.
problem is the TV show took all the plot points in the TV show come from the comic, most of them,
Okay.
but not in order and not with the same relevancy and not
Hmm.
with the same character backstory perfect. So it's
Weird.
an adaptation that is largely truthful to the source material, but the the story arc that happens in the first 6 issues of the comic, and I'm going to spoil everything on every front, so just heads up and warning on
It's
that.
okay.
So we meet Rick Grimes. He wakes up in a hospital bed because that's what happens to every
Mm-hmm.
zombie apocalypse. And oh no, they're zombies. That's it. That's the plot. He meets
Yeah.
uh, one gentleman on the way out of town and his boy, and uh, he gets some guns, gets in the cop car, and drives away. That's the whole issue. There's probably only 4 page, maybe 6 pages that have text. The rest of it is
Okay.
largely this sense of isolation. So the angles of the panels that are drawn are uh, really kind of zoomed out, so you get to see these very empty areas that would normally have people in them.
Mm.
So it creates a really good sense of isolation. And that is
Mm-hmm.
probably the most important aspect to any zombie story. Not zombies, because zombies actually do not matter in a zombie story. So we get this, and then the next issue, he is going to Atlanta to look for his family. He thinks that's where they would have gone. It makes logical sense. It doesn't actually make logical sense, but we're going to believe it. And it just. It, why do people do so many stupid things in a zombie story? Like,
It's an excellent
so
question.
we currently have a pandemic. So what should I do? You know what? I'm going to go drive to Manhattan and wait it out. What person woke up and had that thought? Nobody. So, and I get it. We're supposed to suspend disbelief. I'm going to suspend disbelief that there's a crazy killer undead thing, not stupid cop. So, Rick
Yeah.
Grimes, fine. He needs to see his family. So he goes to Atlanta, and while he's there, there's zombies everywhere because it's a city, and Glenn, who
Mm-hmm.
is from the show, is everyone's fan favorite, like hands down. Michonne and Glenn always kind of top the charts, and so we get to see him, and it's almost panel for panel, shot for shot, the same as the first episode.
Oh,
So
interesting.
this part is very truthful, and you're like, okay, so basically, I'm just watching a graphic novel version of the TV show. But then by the end of issue 2 and for the rest of this arc, there's a lot of people, and all of a sudden, uh, there are like maybe 10 people in a camp, and they're
Hmm.
just outside of Atlanta, and they're staying there because they think if the government's going to come, they're close enough that they can get there, but they're far enough away to be safe. Okay, I can see
Okay.
this logic.
Yeah.
So astronomically, 0% chance that his wife and kid are there. His wife and kid are there. And his partner from the police department. Okay, sure. The
Okay.
Walking Dead. Now, what really shocked me on this, and this is a huge thing in all of zombie stuff,
Mm-hmm.
in issue 2, Glenn calls them zombies. That is like the biggest takeaway from that issue for me.
Okay.
Never.
But they're called walkers on the show, aren't
So
they?
there's a weird thing when George Romero came up with the idea of Night of the Living Dead. Nowhere in Night of the Living Dead are they called zombies. It's not until Return of the Living Dead, which is a spin-off, that they are called zombies, because George Romero did not properly trademark anything to do with it, and that's how come there's so many derivative works of Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead 13. Like,
Oh,
it's because he
geez.
didn't properly trademark it, and he didn't really care. And so I don't know if this has just been a faux pas or a respect to Romero, but no one ever calls them
Okay.
zombies. And now that we're like into season like 18 million, and every time they meet it,
I was gonna say
yeah,
500.
they meet new people and they're like, oh, the snappers, the draggers, the crawlers, the biters, the dude. The writers are running out of the thesaurus. Like, what else do you call them? Just
Yeah.
call them zombies. It's okay. So what we find out is he was in a coma, and while this is all happening, his police partner realized that bad things were happening and wanted to get his wife and kid to Atlanta. He's in a coma. He can't do
Hmm.
anything. In the hospital, it was still open and working at that point. So they were like, we'll come back for him if it's safe. They wanted to keep the kid safe. Fucking Carl.
Okay.
Everyone who's watched The Walking Dead hates Carl. Just, we unify in our hate for Carl. Um, and so, and Carl is kind of a badass in the comics. So in the series, what happens is we find out that Shane shagged Rick's wife.
I do see. I did see the first season because I was like, this is a cultural milestone, like touchstone here. I should probably watch the first season. And then I was like, I'm done now. I don't need to see
So we
anymore.
find that out, and Lori might be pregnant with Shane's kid. We don't know, nor do we really care. Not in for that. And so in the comic on issue 6, Rick and Shane are having an argument. Now, here's my problem with the
Hmm.
comic, and some people can really hate on me for this, but the comic does not give enough time for us to understand the relationship between Rick and his deputy Shane, nor do we get enough
Hmm.
time to see Shane being upset that he thought he could win Lori back or win her over because
Oh.
they did shag.
Hmm.
And then in the show, he starts with like longing for it. Like he thought that
Hmm.
this was his chance. Like, you see the person you're in love with start dating someone else and you're like, oh, well, they're off limits now. But now you have an opening. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
bad opening, but
It's a really bad. Like we left her husband in a coma in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Hey, want to get together? I mean,
which,
yeah.
I mean, hey, it's a zombie apocalypse. All rules are off. So, um, yeah, no one gives her grief for her part in this. So there's this explosive buildup, and what, like, huh? Like,
Where did this come
and
from?
the fact that it's black and white, I think I like black and white better. But when that first issue, what was amazing about it was there were 3 characters. Now
Hmm.
we have a camp with, I think, 10-ish characters. And because they're black and white, there's not enough to discern who's who and associate
Oh.
personality. So, like, you had to really look at the drawings. Um, but none of these relationships are built up enough. And I don't know if this is because Kirkman thought that maybe he only got a 6-month, 6-issue deal. And so he had to keep the
Okay.
story tight. So when this big blow up happens, you're like, okay, it's out of left field. I mean,
But
I
sure.
feel worse for the deputy who, he's completely neglected, and Rick is made to look like the hero, where,
Hmm.
you know, part of his deputy is I kept these people alive. Like, why is
Yeah.
everyone's going to you all of a sudden, yet no one's responding to what I did for them. So that part was kind of a, well, this is out of left field. But the one thing that was much better in the comic is uh, Shane and Rick start to argue, and it looks like at some moment Shane's going to shoot Rick. In the show, Rick stabs him, and then
Oh
he like
yeah.
punctures him in the neck, and then he has a warm, tender moment with Carl, who watched this happen, and that's kind of traumatic. And so
Yeah.
we feel bad for Carl at this point. We hate him later. I'm so not kidding. Spoiler alert: when he died, people clapped.
Oh my
Yeah, I
God.
mean, like there's the whole internet is filled with Carl memes. So, and then what happened was Carl grabs his pistol, and it looks like he's gonna shoot his dad in the show, and you're like, oh no, is Carl like, what's going on? And then he shoots over his shoulder and kills Shane's zombie. Okay, that was a really cool moment in the show. The comic was better, and the reason,
Oh.
Rick is about to be killed, and Carl shoots Shane through the neck, dead. And the last thing he says is, killing the living feels a lot different than killing the dead. And the dad goes, it always should. End. So,
Wow.
like, you
Okay.
ended on a moment where I was like, this is a tidy story now. Like, you wrapped it up.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I have emotion for Carl, who I hate. And okay, so that part was really good. Just
Yeah.
6 issues isn't enough for how much backstory was there. I almost wish they got rid of some of the campers, the other people with them, and just focused on the story between this small unit.
That would have probably been better.
Because
Yeah.
zombie stories are about people surviving other people, not people surviving the dead. And so, with all these other people there, they all kind of got along, and everyone worked together.
You're like, this isn't how
Yeah,
it's supposed to go.
I'm sitting in a pandemic right now. I know that this isn't the reality. Just saying. So I'm going to have to say, oh, as I completely knock the camera aside, I'm going to have to say,
Hmm. This is tough. You're having a tough time.
I'm going to say 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Ooh. Okay. Our first not non 5-star book club
If
choice.
I hadn't seen the show first, I think I would have given it a 4. I think the
Really?
show carried the tension better than the comic. It took,
Okay.
I think, 12 episodes, or no, it took like 14 episodes to get to that climactic moment. So tension was building that whole time. Whereas in this one, you had 6 pages, or you had 6 issues. So you couldn't get that involved or that tension. The
Yeah.
artwork is beautiful. The dialogue is a little hokey, and some of their choices, meh. So
Yeah.
I'm comfortable 3.5.
Okay. No, this is going to be the month for that because I have a non 5-star book too.
I feel like, yay.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is, see, okay, so Trail of Lightning was my book by Rebecca Roanhorse, and I want to say it's just not my genre. So I am not a dystopian person. The only dystopian novel I've ever enjoyed was The Hunger Games. Um,
Hated the Hunger
and
Games.
I
Zero
loved The Hunger
stars.
Games. Well, I should say I like the first 2 books of The Hunger Games. The third one, I was like, oh, look, she's
That's what
catatonic
my
again.
mother said. She's like, read the first book, make your way through the second book, pretend the third book doesn't exist.
Yeah, just skip to the end of the third book where Peeta and Katniss are married and it's all better. Um, but so it's dystopian. there has been this cataclysmic environmental event that they call the Big Water. And so the east and the west coast and portions of the south, I think, are completely underwater. So the Midwest is kind of the only parts of the United States that survived. And it led to energy wars of like oil and like water, like clean water to drink because it's salt water on the coasts. And the character we're introduced to now, I am going to, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, and I apologize, but she's part of the Dene indigenous peoples tribe. I think it's Dene or Dana, but it is a Native American indigenous peoples tribe in the Midwest, and they they have this wall in the book. They have this wall built around. I don't think it was just their reservation. I think it was like a group of them all came together right before the big water happened. And so there's this gorgeous like wall, and the implication is that the gods built the wall. And it has kept them safe, and it keeps out bad
So is
things.
this like way far
And
into the future?
it's not, they don't give a
Oh, okay.
year. And there's still like Chevy trucks and um coffee is rare. Coffee is very expensive and precious and actually can be used as currency because it's so rare. Sugar is rare. So the main character, and I cannot remember her name and I feel really bad. She lives alone in a trailer. And the opening scene is her being asked to a small town within the wall. All of this takes place within the wall, which, if I'm remembering correctly, it encompasses a really, really, really big amount of land. Like it's not just a tiny reservation; it's huge. So she's called to this town where a monster has taken a little girl, and because she's got a reputation as a monster killer. And you find out this is the first one she's done by herself, that she was being mentored by a god, basically. A god whose main job is to go hunt down monsters. So she goes and she discovers that it's basically kind of like a golem. It's a creature that was created by a witch and doesn't have vocal cords. So it's kind of gross. It's actually eating the vocal cords out of this little girl's throat. So she goes, she kills the monster. She has to kill the little girl because the little girl's dying, and so she just it's a thing of. It's also the implication is if you're if you're attacked by one of these kind of monsters, these mystical monsters, then something happens to you, and you have this darkness in you. And so this is like the first two chapters. The character vanquishes the monster, and then it's like this 10-year-old little girl, and it's she says I could probably save her life, but what kind of life am I saving her for? And she cuts off her head. And I'm like, okay, so it's gonna be that kind of book. All right, here we go. Um and you find out through the course of the book that there's like more monsters, something, some witch, somebody is animating these things, and it's really, really bad. And the main character is a pariah. So in this, there are also tribal powers that you inherit from your mother's side and your father's side. And so her tribal powers are very violent. She can move very quickly. And she gets this kind of, I don't want to say Hulk anger, but it is this righteous anger of bloodlust. And so these two things together make her this just really unstoppable weapon. But the thing is, she can only access them in short bursts. And after she's accessed these powers, it depletes her. So it really weakens her. So it's not something she can like use and then bounce back from. So it's kind of a use sparingly kind of situation. Plus, she feels like it makes her a monster. So she doesn't like using them. And you also find out through the course of the book that she was in love with her mentor, this demigod, who just leaves her out in the middle of nowhere one night after they had been monster hunting, and she has no explanation of why. But she assumes that it's because there's something wrong with her, that she is not good enough to be loved. So she has isolated herself out in the middle of nowhere in a trailer with her dogs. She goes into town to visit the one person that she still likes, and it's this old man. He's a medicine man, and he treats her like a daughter, and he introduces her to his grandson, who says he has big magic, and he's going to take care of the big water, and he's going to heal the land. And she's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, she's very cynical. Like, she might deal in magical things, but then she's like, there are limits. Like, she's like, I have my limits. But the guy is really handsome, and the old man is like, no, he can help you fight these monsters. He can help you figure this out. So she's like, all right, fine, fine, fine. So she takes him with her, and they end up, investigating what's going on, and they end up kind of falling for one another. And Coyote, the trickster god, is in the book. He's very heavily involved in the book, and you find out that the trickster god has been visiting her since she was a little girl, and she doesn't know why. And there's all these intricate plots and plans, but I will say my favorite character is this widow who has 4 children, and she basically has a bar that and armed guards with like Uzis guarding the high fence with the barbed wire around the bar. And she's like my favorite character. So the main character goes to her for help, and you find out all about her backstory, and her kids are really kick-ass, and like one of them built a flamethrower that he can like operate while he's on his motorcycle, and I'm just like, oh my god, I am in love with this. And stuff happens, all shenanigans, blah blah blah, and you find out who's really creating these monsters. And it was a shock. Like, usually I can figure out this stuff pretty well, but I was like, oh, that was a nice twist. I did not see that coming. And I'm wanting to hedge this because I don't want to ruin it for anybody that actually does want to read the book. And she ends up confronting her old mentor. And this was the one part that, I mean, okay, monsters eating people's vocal cords out of their throats. Gross, but all right, fine. It's a dystopian urban, dystopian fantasy book. Fine, whatever. This was a little bit icky. It was kind of like if Giles and Buffy had a thing for each other. And I couldn't quite get over that because this guy is like hundreds of years old. I mean, the way he's described, I'm like, okay, yeah, hot. Like, tall, built, long, flowing black hair, scars, but not like ugly scars, like hot scars, like walks around shirtless all the time, carries a big ass broadsword on his back. I mean, so, fantasy.
This is how you know you're in an urban fantasy.
Exactly. But he's hundreds of years old, and he was her mentor, and he like pretty much raised her after cannibals came and killed her grandmother right in front of her. Yes, there are cannibals in this. It's a whole thing. So yeah, like, he raised her in her adolescence. She's in her early 20s now, and I'm just like, and they end up having this confrontation, and he tongue kisses her, and I'm like, no, I'm out. Like, I just can't get over that. So that was the one part in the book where I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to force my way through this because because all I could think about was Giles and Buffy kissing, and that is just wrong on so many levels.
Well, and it almost kind of sounds like she didn't have an option for another romance, so we're just going to rely on an existing character.
Well, but she was falling with the grandson, with the big medicine. We're going to call him Big Medicine because I can't remember his name either. And she was falling for him. But this confrontation, the way it was described, it was kind of like she had to have this confrontation with him in order to get over him. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's
right.
pretty much my dating life right there.
Yeah, but the thing about the confrontation was, and again, I mean, this book has got a little bit of everything in it. It was a death match in an underground magical bar that does gladiatorial bouts. Because yes, why not? Why not? So they're in a match to the death, and he basically stabs her up through her ribs, and she's on her back, and she's dying. And he ends up tongue kissing her while laying, like straddling on top of her while his knife is still in her. And I'm just like, this is not right on so many levels. Like, there are just so many levels of wrong in this scene. And then at the end, she gets over him in a very specific way. Basically, she magically hogties him and leaves him out in the desert. I was like, okay, well, that's a choice.
I mean, I've dated a few people who I've considered such things.
Yes. It ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. I shouldn't say that. The main storylines are wrapped up, but there is a plot point that you're like, whoa, what the hell? How, what, why? Which did make me kind of want to read the second book, even though I'll be honest, I had to force my way through it because, not because of the writing. The writing is spot on awesome. The care and sensitivity with which the culture was dealt with was incredible. The amount of research, I mean, just there were a lot of good things to like. And if you like dystopian novels with a lot of different magical elements all thrown in, and actually, I mean, I'm joke I way I was talking about it, I was kind of joking, but they were balanced out very well, and it was very believable that cannibals and underground magical gladiatorial rings would totally coexist in this world. Like, I bought it.
It sounds like
I just had a
it almost sounds like plot point roulette. Okay, we're gonna
yeah.
spin the
I
wheel,
mean,
and it's cannibals. Let's do it.
yes. Well, it was the cannibals, really. I was like, oh, we're in a Mad
That's
Max
exactly what I
situation here.
thought.
Okay. Yeah. And then the underground gladiatorial thing, I was like, oh, Mad Max, we're
I
back
would
here
just need to
again.
hear this with some Tina Turner, and we don't need another hero in the background.
Yes. But then there are, like, they went into a town that was completely decimated. And they never tell you quite by what, but your assumption is the monsters. And they're ghosts, but they're like angry ghosts. Like when people are murdered, their spirits can hang around and they can possess you. So it's like a town full of angry wraiths, and they have to drive through here. So I'm like, okay, now we're in a ghost story. This is kind of like, but I bought it. That was the thing. It's like on paper, you're like, this shouldn't all work together, but it does. It really does. It's just, it wasn't my kind of book. It just wasn't. And it's not the fault of like bad writing or anything. The characters were really compelling, and with the exception of that one plot point romancing between the mentor and the mentee, I, I thought it was well done, but it just wasn't my thing. It wasn't my cup of tea. So I actually, for good writing, and for the fact that it was a first person point of view, which I generally don't
Oh,
like, and I still liked the character, I'm gonna give it four
okay.
stars. I'm I am gonna give it 4 stars because there was a lot that was done well. It just wasn't my kind of book.
It wasn't a must tell every person you know go read it.
No, no. And to be 5 stars, I kind of feel like it should be something I'm like, oh my God, you have to read
I
this.
so
But
far for our last two that we've done, they are two series that I literally, oh, you're gonna start reading comics? Read this.
yeah,
So yeah, five is everyone must know the word.
yeah. And four, I mean, I vacillated back and forth between 3.5 and 4 stars, but the writing was really solid. It was really solid. And so I just felt like 4 stars was the better choice. But hey, if you like a total mishmash of dystopian and paranormal stuff, like go get this book. This is kind of for you, but it just
Now
wasn't
I
for
have
me.
like Mad Max, Hunger Games,
Uh-huh.
and Buffy, like just stirred together.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, she's like a Native American Buffy,
Okay.
basically. She is the monster hunter, and everybody knows it.
I mean, I'm I find it difficult to have magic in my dystopia. That
It, yeah,
I like my dystopian to be dystopian all on its own.
yeah. And I think, honestly, I think it was a mistake to read a dystopian book. For this time frame, which is really funny because I'm trying to read the second book in the fifth season trilogy, which is a total mistake because that is like world-ending cataclysm. Everybody's going to die. God, how did I get roped into
Yeah,
this
that's starting to
again?
sound like my reading list.
I know. So I actually don't know what my book for May is going to be yet. I have a couple of possibilities.
I, whew, to be quite honest, I hadn't thought about it. Um,
Yeah.
I want to do something. I want to do something with a classic hero. So I'm thinking
Mm,
maybe like an early Wonder Woman, Captain America, like
Oh
either I
yeah.
want to go like a classic story that stands the test of time, or I want to go for a radically reinterpreted version of them.
Okay, so I have a suggestion for you for Wonder Woman. You don't have
Okay,
to do
what do
it,
you got?
but um in the 1960s when they stripped her
Yep.
powers and they totally like gave her like a Chinese mentor and she ran a clothing boutique, you should check those out. They're not great. They're actually really corny and but oddly enough I enjoyed them. She cries a lot. Like she cries a lot. But I there were good things to like about them even though I was like it's not Wonder Woman, but it was interesting. But just a
So,
suggestion.
like, the whole concept of Miles Morales from Into the Spider Verse comes from Ultimate Spider Man, and the Ultimate Universe in Marvel. What they did was they took existing characters and they reimagined them. They just reinterpreted the existing
Mhm.
things. So, the Phoenix exists in X Men, except she is the deity of a doomsday cult, and
Okay.
Lilandra is the head priestess of the doomsday cult. She's not alien, but
Huh.
she believes
Yeah.
that it was provided by aliens, but it's
Uh-huh.
just these slight twists. Um, and
That make it
yeah,
more interesting.
and
Yeah.
it respects the mythos that you already know,
Hmm.
but it gives you something new. So I really like those alternate non-canon things.
Then Wonder Woman, the Odyssey duology, which was the last thing that was written before the New 52, I adore
Oh, okay.
those. Now the author himself is a little problematic, but the Wonder Woman Odyssey duology is what you're talking about. It's a
Oh,
reimagining
okay.
of the characters of her origin story. And I thought it was really interesting. And she has a brand new outfit, and I love this Wonder Woman outfit. I love
I will have to
it.
check that out because I love the origin story of. I love the backstory that led to the origin story of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, this is a reimagining of that, and it's mystical and mysterious,
Ooh,
and you're just like, what the heck is going on? And I mean, I really
I
liked
might
it.
have to take a peek at that then. That might be. I'm thinking Wonder Woman. It's time to happen.
Yeah, it's two issues. Well, it's two like are they called trades? I never can remember that.
Trades are when
Where
there are
they take the
multiple
different
issues per.
yeah. So they're two
Okay,
trades that I have. Um yeah, it's a duology. So it was good. It was Straczynski, I think,
I
wrote
will have to
it.
check that out then. I think that's
Yeah.
that's probably where I'm going to go then.
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple, A Remembrance of Ghosts. I might read that one, but oh God, it's just like okay, it's like a spaceship and it's the upper classes on the upper part of the spaceship and like the poor people on the lower part of the spaceship. So it's a the poor people revolt. And I'm like, I don't know if I can handle like, I need something upbeat. I need something happy. I mean, I know that might sound really shallow, but I just kind of need that right
I'm
now.
trying to think.
Like something I could sink into that's fun.
You know what you need to read? Soon I will
What?
be invincible.
Okay, yes. Actually, it is on my to read
It
list, so I should read that one.
it's super dry. I mean, it's funny in how dry it is.
Okay.
But I listened to the audiobook and it's first person split between uh the the villain who is the main character and his ex-girlfriend's new Justice League member, I guess. It's
Okay.
so weird. You snort at the dryness. Like it's funny.
So, would you suggest the audiobook or the ebook?
Um, some of the voices were difficult to swallow.
Okay, then
I
ebook.
I think it would be easier because uh, there is an ensemble of superheroes that get together,
Oh,
and when they're all
okay.
talking, that I find it difficult to pay attention to audio. That I got a little confused on, but it didn't ruin
Okay.
anything. So
All right. Well, I will. Okay, that's what I'll read then. I'll read Soon I Will Be
There
Invincible.
we go. Wonder Woman and Soon I Will Be Invincible.
Woohoo!
Um, we'll put the actual links to the books in the show notes.
Yeah. And seriously, people, Rebecca Roanhorse is an Indigenous woman, and she wrote Trail of Lightning, and I really am trying to do a lot more own voices. So if what I talked about, you're like, no, that's my brand of poison. Seriously, check it out. I mean, the writing is solid, and the characters are really interesting. So go for it.
All right. I think that wraps it up for the week.
It does. Thank you for hanging out with us, everybody.
And we will talk to you later. Bye.